We like to make sure that our leased guys are reading those contracts, making sure what they actually need, making sure they have some kind of physical damage somewhere, whether it's with us or with somebody else or with the motor carrier, so that in a claim situation, their equipment is covered. And so they're not starting back at square one with nothing.
Welcome back to Landline Now, and welcome to another installment of our Truck to Success series of segments where we preview October's 3-day seminar and give you a sense of what you might learn there. Today, we're going to delve into the sometimes overwhelming world of insurance and claims, and here to break it all down for us are Margo Fries, Josie Feltrop, and Megan Tinajero of OOIDA, all of whom are presenting at Truck to Success. How are we all doing?
Good. Doing good this morning.
Thanks for being here. Let's start with insurance, something I think all of us are familiar with, obviously, when it comes to passenger vehicles. But if we're talking insurance for a commercial truck, we're talking a lot of ins, a lot of outs that people probably aren't as familiar with, I would imagine, especially if they're starting out. This is a different animal altogether, lots and lots to consider, right?
That is very true.
Yeah. So let's walk through kind of everything that we do have to think about, starting with the operation, right? Your needs are going to vary based on what you want to do or what you are doing, right?
What the type of operation is, yes.
So walk us through that.
So when you talk about operations in trucking, you have basically two. You have your people who have their own authority, their own MC and DOT number, and then you have guys who have their own truck and are leasing on to somebody else. Those are the two operations in trucking that are going to have some kind of insurance. So when you have your own authority, probably a good chunk of your cost is going to come from your insurance base. And so that's where, when you have your own authority, you have to have the most insurance. You have to have the $1 million that FMCSA requires for the public liability. You have to have some kind of cargo coverage to cover the products that you're hauling. And then you have your basic physical damage for your equipment. So those are the big three. When you're leased on, you have physical damage, and then you also have a secondary liability that your motor carrier requires. So those are the main insurances, and then we have tons of supplementary coverages that we really encourage our guys to have. The big one is the supplemental towing and cleanup.
Yeah.
That we really encourage our guys to have.
Which we're definitely going to talk about here in a little bit, but I think you raised something that we've been talking about throughout these segments, is that you've got to kind of know yourself when you're starting out and ask yourself a bunch of questions. When it comes to insurance, I think you kind of touched on the two big questions, or I guess the one big question that you've got to answer for yourself is what type of operation are you going to have? But that is something that is very important, right? To make sure that you're considering what you're going to be doing and what that means for insurance, right?
Sure. So a lot of the things that I talk to guys about is, especially in this economic climate that we have, is which way is going to be better for you. So are you going to get your own authority? If you're going to get your own authority, do you know what your per mile cost is going to be? Do you know that you're going to have the loads and the business to keep that going? Do you have enough revenue, not revenue, but enough savings to keep you going that first few months until you really start having money come in? So those are some things I talk to guys about. If you don't have those things, or if you're not sure, then leasing on may be a better option to start out with until you are more comfortable in the industry and knowing what's going on.
There's so much to consider with insurance, and as I kind of said at the beginning there, I think we're all familiar with it. But again, this is a whole different animal here. The people that come to Truck to Success specifically, what kind of misconceptions or misunderstandings do they come into the seminar with? And what are you trying to help them with, I guess, along the way?
I think one of the big misconceptions is that it's a lot easier than what they think. They don't understand all of the cost and bookkeeping that goes along with it. A lot of guys can drive, but it's the bookkeeping in the background that really makes the business successful and where you see your bottom dollars. Then, when you have your insurance, you're running, whether you're leased onto an owner operator or you have your own authority, then a claim situation comes in, and then you really know, did I have the right insurance coverage? Do I have enough savings to get me through this time while my truck is getting repaired, or I'm finding another truck or trailer, whatever the situation may be? And when they get to the seminar, when they hear these, it really makes them step back and think, I don't know if I have enough money set aside to do what I'm wanting to do right now. It might be best that I wait and I do lease onto a motor carrier, get my feet wet, and figure out all the costs that are going to be contributed to this operation.
Yeah. Let's talk basics here, because when we're talking about insurance and insuring your stuff, obviously we're talking about the tractor, trailer as well, if you have one. Can we just kind of go over all the things that you've got to keep in mind when you're insuring your stuff? Because there's a lot to consider here, right?
There is a lot to consider, and there's a lot of misinformation that our guys get, that, like, especially our leased owner operator guys that come to us, they think the motor carrier's covering their truck and trailer, and in all actuality, there's no coverage for them. So we like to make sure that our leased guys are reading those contracts, making sure what they actually need, making sure they have some kind of physical damage somewhere, whether it's with us or with somebody else or with the motor carrier, so that in a claim situation, their equipment is covered. And so they're not starting back at square one with nothing.
Yeah, and that happens.
A
lot, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's kind of a misunderstanding, I think, of knowing what they need, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you got to know what you need. And obviously, the seminar itself will help walk everybody through it. And we've talked about this before, but the great thing about it is that the experts, you all, are in the room. They can come up to you and you can ask questions and find out what they need and kind of guide them through that process there. You mentioned earlier, Josie, optional supplemental coverages. There's so many out there. It's that can get overwhelming, I know, for sure. What kinds of things do you recommend in terms of, optional supplemental coverage that people get to make sure that they are covered in the event of something happening?
Well, I can tell you from a claim standpoint, what our insureds realize at claim time is that they didn't have those supplemental coverages that they should have had. Some of the major ones are the supplemental towing and cleanup. Sometimes the roadside breakdown comes in very handy. There's supplemental downtime payments. There's rental reimbursement. So there's a lot that they think about once they no longer have use of their tractor and trailer. And so they start to panic. And so that's when we start talking to them about those coverages and what they should have maybe next time around.
That's a tough thing, and I do this for better and for worse. But you go and you sign up for something, and then they try to throw this thing, and you need this and that, and your instinct is to say no, I don't need that. I don't want to pay anything extra. Just give me the basic stuff.
I need the cheapest possible to get started.
Exactly. And
That's what I hear all the time.
And we understand that sentiment, obviously, especially when you're getting started. You want to make sure that you are saving money and saving up for a rainy day. How do you kind of talk people into making sure that they are, covering all those bases? Because it is about being ready for that rainy day, right?
Well, I think that nobody ever expects to be in an accident.
Yeah,
you don't
sure.
think it's going to happen to you. And so you do try to save a buck up front. But once you're in that situation, you want to be fully covered. And you want to make sure you have the cash reserves for deductibles. And I know that with OOIDA's insurance, there's separate deductibles for cargo, and then there's a separate one for truck and trailer. So a lot of these guys, they're not prepared to cover that type of loss. And then the downtime is a big deal too. So I think just being prepared for the unexpected, especially with cargo, because these tow bills, if you dump your load all over the highway, that tow bill is the majority for cargo. It gets pricey quick.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And some of the supplemental coverages, I mean, obviously every little bit adds up, but some of them are not. I mean, we're not talking about an astronomical amount of money, right? Some of them are what?
Yeah, I mean, you can add supplemental towing and cleanup to your policy on your own authority for as little as $20 a month, and then
Yeah.
it goes up from there. So, I mean, it's all about fitting your coverage to what you want, and you can start with the basics and then raise it later if you want to, or you can start with the max and bring it down later. You know, we're very flexible. We work with our guys all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we're constantly making changes for them.
As someone who has a aversion to sales pitches and things like that, you know, as I mentioned, when you go into these things, and we were talking about phones earlier before we started recording, you know, they want to throw this coverage on there. That I'm like, no, I'm good. Just, give me the phone, you know. So I understand that kind of feeling, when it comes to that kind of thing. The good thing about Truck to Success and OOIDA, I think, is you're not trying to like oversell somebody. You really are trying to look out for them in the event that something happens, and I think that's important. And that comes across, I think, from everybody that works here and is at the Truck to Success seminar as well. They want to help, right? I just kind of want to ask each of you here, because you've all done the seminar and presented there and helped people along the way. When people come to it, what are you trying to make sure that they understand? What's the key thing that you feel like they will take away or do take away from the seminar each and every time that they go? And I can kind of go around the table here. It's a pop quiz of sorts, I guess. But what are you trying to make sure that they walk away with, I guess, from the seminar?
I try to make sure that they just understand what was explained. I've had many of them come up afterwards and ask questions, and I come back to the office. I'll get them the material that they've asked for, what they wanted more information on, and then go back the next day and give it to them, and then we'll discuss it further. That way they have a full understanding of what's going on. I want them to, ask as many questions as possible, because that's the way to learn.
Yeah. Because it can be tailor-made to anybody.
Anybody
who attends, right? Yeah.
And that's why I like the one-on-one conversations at the seminar, because you can tailor-make it to that member and what he or she is looking for.
Right. Some of these things are going to apply to everybody. But again, everybody's different. Everybody has their own needs.
Absolutely.
They all come in with their own histories and
Yes.
everything. So everybody, has their own things. Josie, Megan, what are you trying to kind of make sure that people come away with?
I try to cover all kinds of different operations under the cargo umbrella. So I think that a lot of them, it is kind of daunting. It's a lot of information, but it's a real relaxed atmosphere, and we do this every day. So we're used to talking to these guys, and we know Margo and I know what kind of claims we see on a regular basis. So for me, it's about information. It's about, helping them prevent a loss as much as I possibly can. Because nobody wants to have a claim, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And being prepared when a claim does happen. One thing that I show on my presentation is the different types of claims and what to do. Because when you're in an accident, you're panicking. But the first thing you really need to do is just stay calm. You just assess the situation, see what you got, make the phone calls, and stay calm.
Yeah. And as Megan, you said earlier, nobody thinks they're going to get in that situation. It happens. It happens all the time, unfortunately. And again, if you're covering yourself in the event of that, then you're in a much better place than you would be otherwise. There's a lot to consider. Again, Truck to Success, the three of you will be there. You will be there to answer those questions. We appreciate you being here today to answer our questions. Josie, Megan, and Margo, we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a few quick reminders here before we roll into a break. Truck to Success runs for 3 days starting October 22nd in Blue Springs, Missouri. There's an in-person option and an option to attend via Zoom. Truck2success.com is the place to go for all your answers to all the questions that may be out there. Now, as for that break, we'll take it now, but don't go too far, because Landline Now continues in just a moment.